Hello and welcome to the Dawn Jarvis Show, where our goal is to inspire you by interviewing a diverse range of visionary leaders and entrepreneurs and sharing their entrepreneurial journey. Today we have a very special guest, my old friend Andrew Baguley, who wants to work out how he can still make money while doing something he enjoys, and that will keep him active, and how he can achieve it all without getting stressed. We will also be discussing better planning for retirement, accepting your old age, and keeping happy. Hello, Andrew. How are you?
Hello, Dawn. I'm retired.
Oh, I know. Andrew is a very old friend of mine. We've known each other for about 15 years now. And, you know, when I met you, you had a role-playing agency that supplied actors to corporate clients so they could do role plays about leadership and things like that. You've been an actor and you returned to acting and voiceovers. And he actually, you may recognize his dulcet tones because he was the person who originally did the voiceover for the Dawn Jarvis Show. So you've had a long and, you know, very interesting career, and it's been really good to hear all about it. So I usually ask people, how did you get to where you are today? But then thinking, but we're going to be talking about retirement as well, aren't we? So it's sort of, give us a quick run through of your career and then go into where you are now, which is a transition of in your life, isn't it? And in retiring. So over to you.
Okay, thanks, Dawn. Well, I didn't go to university, and if any of your listeners remember Ted Heath's 3-day working week.
I just remember it. Yeah, just remember it.
Yeah, to context, I'm 67, so I remember that. I was 18 at the time, and that was when I left college with a couple of fairly low-grade A-levels. And I worked on a sewage works for about several months, and I worked as a school assistant caretaker and so on, because there wasn't much around. Then I was fortunate enough to get a job as a housing officer. So that was my first career path. I worked for a local authority down on the south coast, and then I came up to London in the mid-70s and started working for Lambeth Council, amongst others, as a housing officer. But I never really enjoyed that. I did my diploma in housing, and lots of times I'd see planes flying over me while I was out walking on the housing estate and thinking, I wish I was on that plane. And sometimes I went round with a colleague and I said to her, I wish I was on that plane. And I wonder where it's going. And she said, Heathrow. So I thought, well, that's not the answer. So anyway, after a while, I started to do amateur dramatics, and then I decided I would try to make a go of it as a professional actor. And I did that for about 6 years. After 8 years in housing, I spent about 6 years as a professional actor. Oh, it was really tough. Getting work was really tough. I managed to get an equity card ultimately, but that took forever, and I was broke most of the time. And then the kind of work I did ended up being dressing up in animal costumes and jumping around for under fives in parks and play schemes and that kind of thing. Plus I did a bit of fringe theatre and so on. But during that time, people I knew from my old housing days said, oh, we need someone to pretend to be a difficult customer. So I started doing that. That gave me the idea of setting up my old company, Role Plays for Training. And I did that for 23 years, I think. However, that was good, that company, and it was quite lucrative at times. But for the last 7 or 8 years, I thought, I don't want to be doing this anymore. And I tried to sell it, which took me ages and ages and ages, but finally did sell it back in 2011. And I got some money, not a huge amount of money, from the sale of that business. And then I thought, well, what am I going to do now? I'm 56 or so at that time. what shall I do? And I kind of defaulted back to trying to be an actor again. And people said, oh, you've got a nice voice, Andrew, why don't you do voiceover? So I started building a studio at home and trying to get voiceover work. And both of those things have been very, very tough financially and organizationally. So it's got to this time where I'm 67 now, I'm getting my state pension and I'm drawing down on a private pension that I have. And I'm thinking, well, what do I do now? I don't know. And the important thing is, I suppose for me, is to keep engaged, keep active, find something useful to society that I can do. And at the moment, that's still a work in progress. Having said that, that does sound a bit gloomy, that I've been doing things and I didn't really enjoy them all that much. But hey, I guess we all have that in our working lives, that we do a job and we think, oh, it's Friday. Thank goodness that we can go home and forget all about it. And that was certainly the case with me in several of my jobs. So that's my potted history, if you like.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Andrew. And I think what's happening to you, and has happened in the time I've known you, and happens to everybody when it's where you come to a transitional period in your life, and it's like, what's next? What am I going to do next? And that is something that I think when we're young, we don't think about that much, and then we think, oh well, it'll happen, and then when you get to a certain age, and it happened for me when I was about 50, you think, oh, I'm nearer retirement than I'm not, so what am I actually going to do with the rest of my life? How am I going to be gainfully employed or not, and is this what I want to do for the rest of my working days? And if I don't want to do this, then what do I want to do? So I want to congratulate you, Andrew, for actually, when you weren't enjoying your company, you sold it and you tried something else, and then you tried something else, and then you're now trying something else. So and that is I suppose, in essence, the journey, isn't it? Really, I'm going to say,
yeah.
It is how things are. And I think, when I think back to when I started nursing, I thought I'd be nursing for the rest of my life. I thought I'd be working in a hospital, looking after patients for the rest of my life. I had no aspirations for management or to do anything else. I remember not doing computer science at school, because it was the first year they did this, listeners, and it was when God was a boy. And I thought, I don't need to do that because I'm going to be a nurse and I won't need to use a computer. Little did I know how things were going to change and how computers were actually going to change the world. So I think everyone gets to that stage, and well done to you for thinking about it and planning for it. So how's it going?
Well, it's going okay. A major change for me is I'm trying to sell my house, and I am downsizing. So I guess in many people's retirement journey, this is something that many people consider. Some people don't, I suppose. And I'm aware of some friends who are stuck in a house that is too big, too old, too expensive to repair, with stairs that are too steep.
Yes. Yes.
That's where I am now. That's the house that I am in now, and I'm trying to sell it to move into a flat that is all on one level and fairly new, so that I won't have to spend money on repairs and deal with tradespeople when I'm in my dotage, and also has cheaper and more modern heating systems, and generally doesn't need very much repair. So I've been thinking about this for a while, and I thought, yeah, it is important to downsize, release a bit of equity. I mean, I've been fortunate in that I made some money over my life, not loads, but I made enough to become mortgage free about 10 years ago. So I am in a fortunate position that I'm able to buy a place outright. But the money that I have, of course, is only finite, and I want to have a comfortable retirement. So that's why I need to make plans, release some capital, stop paying out for chimney repairs and new roofs,
Yeah.
and not having to think about getting an air source heat pump for my back garden and all of that kind of stuff. But I'm thinking, I don't want to be doing that at 75. I don't want to have to be applying for a government grant for an air source or ground source heat pump, or having a little nuclear reactor in my kitchen. I don't know what the technology will be.
I know, but it's amazing that you just don't think about those things. So I've lived in my house for 22 years now, and when I bought it, I did not consider whether I'd be able to make it up the stairs later in my life. And I think what you're describing is some of the things that you don't think about later. You know, one of the things that, so Andrew and I both live in London, and you don't really need a car in London, but if you move out of London, do you need a car, transport, you know, how are you going to get to the shops, you know, how is that all going to work? It's some of the things that I've been thinking about and thinking, well, you know, maybe the house is too big for one person, you know, I don't live here alone at the moment, but you know, I may do, and what does that mean, and what do you do about it? And, you know, again, I'm going to congratulate, because you actually are doing something, you're actually making those decisions. Did you get any help making those decisions, or did you do it all by yourself?
Well, I've talked to a lot of friends, and they say, "Oh, Andrew, why are you moving? Your house is really nice. Don't move." And then it does seem that quite a lot of my friends don't think about this kind of stuff, this dynamic of getting older. And I suppose help. Yeah, I've had a financial advisor who's advised me on my pension. That's been good. My pensions are not doing well at the moment. They're invested in the stock market, and the stock market has not done well. Again, I'm in a fortunate position to have that pension fund. So that's the only official advice I've had. And talking to my pensions advisor, and actually talking to my friends as well, what comes up is, well, how long are you going to live? What's your lifespan going to be? Because it's like, I was thinking about this morning. When you go on holiday to Lanzarote and you say, right, I'm going to pack my suitcase, how many pairs of socks and underwear and t-shirts am I going to need? And the key piece of information you need to do that packing is, well, how long am I going away for? 10 days? All right, well, I need 10 pairs of socks, 10 t-shirts, etc. So in terms of retirement planning, I've got my suitcase here full of money, which has got to last me the rest of my life. How long am I going to need this money for? What will be my very roughly expected date of death? What
oh my goodness.
Be? But this is happening. It's going to happen to everybody who's listening to this. And you have to think about it. And when I talk to my friends about this, they say, oh, come on, Andrew, cheer up. You've got decades to go yet. But the truth is, Dawn, I haven't got decades. So I'm 67. I've had bowel cancer, for example. I'm well now. But the average age for someone who has reached 67 and is a man living in Southeast London, where I live, according to the Aviva pensions website, there's a calculator, and it will say, if you've reached 67, your average age of death is going to be 84. So that's not far away. That is, for me, that's 17 years. And it could be longer, of course, or it could be shorter. We don't know. But that's useful information for determining how much money you can get away with spending, how much you need to downsize, how much you need to realize any of your assets. So that has been preoccupying me. And of course, the other thing is that as you get older, you may not necessarily be out in cocktail bars every night drinking pina coladas.
Surely not.
And
I was counting on that, actually, to be fair.
So again, there's the young elderly age, which I suppose that I'm in, and let's say that is between now and 77. Let's say that my health remains good. I can zoom up the stairs, and I can still keep going to the gym, and I can sit in cocktail bars, and I can go to Spain and drink pina coladas. But then there's the older elderly age, where maybe 78 to this mythical 84, where I'm thinking, well, I probably won't be spending quite so much money, and therefore my money may go further, unless I need to buy in, say, private healthcare, depending on what happens to the NHS, subject close to your heart, Dawn. So these things have been in my mind. And again, people are thinking, oh, what's this Andrew talking about? What a gloomy old git he is. But I think it has to be thought about. Whatever age you are when you're past 50, probably, you've got to start thinking these things.
I actually agree, and I've got a similar story. I was talking to somebody about investing, and they were talking to me, and then goes, well, you know, it needs to be a 30-year investment. And I said to him straight off the bat, I might not have 30 years, so you know, I might not really. I know. So and I spoke to him. He's a YouTuber, and I said to him, you know, you need to think about that with a financial advice, or you know, talking about finances. That you know, if you make those sort of investments when you're even 40, that's okay. But when, as you heard, over 50, and I'm nearly 55, that's a different calculation that you have to make about how you're going to realize your assets, as you said. But again, it's a really good thing to think about and to make some decisions about, and it's a very mature thing to do. I know we're talking about old age, and one of the things I wanted to go on to is accepting that you're aging, and that is something I think we all struggle with. I have said myself that since I turned 40, you become very aware of your mortality. And we've just had it's not ended, we're still in a pandemic situation, and you know, that has made people confront their mortality and how quickly people can be taken away from you. So you sort of like, I think that I've been having those thoughts, not necessarily doing anything about it, but you know, but more so now, about we're all going to die. And when you're in your 20s, you don't think about it. Everything is, you can bounce back from, you can start a new journey. But as you sort of like move along the needle, shall we say, those thoughts start being different. And do you think it is about accepting that you are aging, you know, maturing, whatever way you want to say it, but you know, it's sort of like the things that you would do when you were 35 that you're not going to do when you're 55 or 65. And you know, so when I first met you, you were in your late 50s, and I'm now going to go into my late 50s, and it is a different place to be, isn't it?
Yeah, it is very much so. I've noticed that I've slowed down. My eyesight isn't so good. I don't bounce back from things as quickly as I did. And something else you've probably come across, which is perhaps more often referred to in the context of being a woman, but that's being invisible as you become older. You're no longer a hot being.
Yes.
That's not necessarily true. So don't get me wrong. But you know, it was very interesting. I went to a 22nd birthday party 2 weekends ago, and it was Hip Hop Brunch London. That was the venue, and that's in Brick Lane, which is in fairly central London. And the music style was hip hop. There were free cocktails for the first hour and a half or something like that. And although there were a few older people there, most people were aged between 18 and 25. So I spent some time thinking, well, Andrew, what are you doing here? I know I've been invited, and it's nice to be in this space, and I do enjoy a bit of hip hop and R&B. But then I found that the less I did, if I just sat there with a half mysterious smile on my face, yes, and didn't start talking nonsense, people in fact would come up to me and say, oh, well, who do you know? And so on. And then conversations would develop from there. So I didn't actually feel invisible there.
Mm-hmm.
I felt, this sounds a bit corny, but I felt like, oh, who's that wise man, older man there in the corner?
Absolutely.
Say, and
Yeah.
I do find that as I'm getting older, even though I don't necessarily have more wisdom, people perceive that I have, and that's very nice. And one thing that I am still learning is to shut up and listen when people want to say things to me. Just don't say anything or just nod. And sometimes you can do that, and the person who's been talking to you will say goodbye, and they'll say, "You're so wise, Andrew. You've given me such great advice. I don't, I'm going to follow your advice." And I'm thinking, I haven't said anything.
That's
You've solved
hilarious.
this yourself. And I think you can get away with that a bit more when you're older.
You should go into counselling, Andrew, because that's the whole, or into coaching, because that's the whole thing. You're supposed to just listen and let the person come up with their own solutions. Guide, yes, a sage and a guide. I think right. That you're becoming, and it's that is really interesting, because I recently went to an in-person event, and people may know that I sort of talk about networking, and I actually went to this event by myself, walked into the room, and I was thinking, oh my goodness, this is what people mean by walking into a room by yourself as a 55-year-old woman, sorry, and the main clientele was between 20 and 27. And I was thinking, oh, what am I going to do now? So my advice to people when you're in that situation is head for the coffee, and then find someone to talk to and talk about the weather. But that worked. But actually the same thing happened to me, is that in the end people kept coming up to me. So there is something around being with people that are younger, that they do appreciate sort of like talking to somebody with a different perspective. And I think sort of accepting maturing and older age is about that you've got so much to offer, so many different perspectives on the world. You've seen a lot of things. I mean, you talked about Ted Heath and 3-day weeks, and in our economic situation at the minute, which is tricky, shall we say, I do remember, although I was a young girl, 3-day weeks, and there being that power cuts, and people really raging inflation, and the impact that had, although I was young and it wasn't on me, but it was on my family, and think people couldn't afford things. And we've had such a good time, I suppose, economically, that people it's not now it's hardly within living memory when things weren't so brilliant, and and that people did have to save and struggle and think about what they were going to do and how they're going to spend their money. So so it's good to have that living history still there and to think about it. So yes, but I do need to let people talk as well. That is something that but actually you could see the wisdom in it. Actually, you before you thought you're full of all these good ideas, but now sometimes it's better to let people talk and find out what they've got to, because then you can help them better, I find, as well. So keeping happy while all this is happening, so moving, downsizing, accepting retirement, one of the things I found is that you realize, or I have realized, that you're not going to be the next best young thing, because those days are past you. You talked about being a woman. For being a woman, you realize you're not going to have any more children, or if you're not having children, that's not going to be part of your life anymore. And that and also that I talked about this at the beginning, you think about, so how am I going to spend my days in my 50s? How am I going to spend days in my 60s? How long am I going to work for? Whether I'm working for myself or for other people, when am I going to literally hang up my hat and say, oh, that's it, I'm cocktailing only from now on? So how do you find the best way that's worked for you for keeping happy?
I think it's friends, maintaining friendships. And I've got quite a lot of friends, but it does involve a lot of effort to keep a good circle of friends. I mean, you have to phone them.
Yes, you do. You do.
And you have to be nice to them, which is all good. But I mean, friends are so important to keep yourself happy in old age. Now, I have never married. And is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know. But because I've been single for a long, long time, it's meant that I have focused many of my energies that could have gone into one relationship into many, many different friends. And I see these friends, and then they will invite me to things like a 22nd birthday party of a daughter or granddaughter, something like that. And I think that's amazing. So friendship is important. Keeping physically healthy as much as you can is important. And then finding useful things to do that A, supplement my income, and B, make me feel valued, and C, give me something to talk about. Now, you said just now, oh, Andrew, perhaps you should think about being a life coach. And I've thought about that, and I think, yes, that could be useful. And then I think, oh no, but I'll have to go on a course. I'll have to, I know you can set yourself up as a life coach or as a retirement coach. And that is something that I am thinking of doing, because I have a perspective which isn't necessarily an expert perspective, but I've lived a reasonably full life and done quite a few things, and I may well have things to offer people. Now, I'm at the moment in the middle of deciding whether or not to stay being an actor and a voiceover, or whether to stop. Being an actor and a voiceover artist does mean that if you get work, all of a sudden you have to drop everything because an audition has come up, or maybe a job has come up, and that is so random. Nothing might happen for 3 months, and then a job comes up and you have to drop everything. So that means that some of your planning can be turned awry. And also I'm thinking, well, how much do I really enjoy the acting and the voiceover? It is hard to get work. The voiceover work I get is often not very well paid. I have done a couple of adverts which have been okay, but it's not that well paid. And also you need to keep up your marketing and your social media.
Absolutely. You
need to stay relevant. And I'm thinking, my life would be so much more simple if I wasn't an actor and wasn't a voiceover anymore. And then I was thinking, well, okay, what would I do? And I thought, maybe I need to get a job. Maybe I actually need to go back into the pay-as-you-earn or casual work environment and get a job. And I know this sounds quite nuts, but I would love to work in the recycling industry, literally sorting plastic bottles from glass bottles or something like that. And there is, in fact, in Deptford, there's a big recycling plant, which I haven't investigated this, but there may be jobs which would be minimum wage that I could do for 2 days a week, maybe on a casual basis, and do something like that. And because, again, I'm fortunate that I can get by without the money there. And it's not a career, and I'm not desperate. That is something that I could do that I think might give me some happiness and also give me something to talk about. Oh, you never know. There was a jam on the conveyor belt. Those plastic bottles.
I love that.
I could tell my friends.
You could. Well, there's always lots of stories you can tell about anything. I've realized that you can actually just, even, anything you can tell a story about. What I'm actually really interested in the concept is that you can, particularly as a business owner, because you've been a business owner, you run your own business as an actor as well, you're self-employed as an actor, that you may go back to actually going to a job for the thing it gives you for activity, connection, and also, because that is in the world of work, or the world of being occupied in mental health, that is one of the indicators for happiness. They don't call it that, but that's one of the things they measure. Is somebody gainfully employed, or are they doing something with their time? Because it does help you to stay happy. So I really like that. And also there's this, I was thinking while you were talking about choices, so you've got yourself into a position where you have choices. And so it's, if you do want to work in a recycling, at whatever level, that would be your choice and you'd be happy about it. And that is a great thing, a great position to be in, that because, my business owner journey is quite short, but there is that option. I do think about, oh, it'd be brilliant to go back, with all this experience perspective back into the NHS and do something not senior, but do something really well for 2 days a week and be cool, because you'd enjoy it. You wouldn't be worrying about stuff. You just be able to do it to the best of your ability. And then maybe it's a conversation for another day about whether that's possible or not. Because I always have this theory that, when I was nursing, we used to talk about getting a job in Tesco's, but I always said, if you got a job in Tesco's, they'd promote you immediately. And that's what I think would happen to you. But but if you were very boundaried, which with age, I guess you can be, can't you? Like, no, I don't want any responsibility, I just want to do this, thank you very much. And then you can do it to the best of your ability. That is so useful, both personally and also for the wider economy, everything, that I think so, and health-wise as well.
Absolutely. And it brings to mind something that changes as you get older, and that is ambition.
Yes.
My ambition has changed. I have been ambitious. I was ambitious when I started off as a housing officer. And of course, when I was a young actor, I wanted to be in EastEnders and in Hollywood and so on. I was ambitious. When I had my business, I wanted the business to make loads of money and be successful. And I was ambitious for my reputation as well. Reputationally ambitious. Now, I still have some ambitions. I mean, I've got an ego, like so many people, but the ambition now isn't so much a driving force, because I am faced with the reality that I probably don't have, maybe I've got 10 more active years where I can be out there doing things and working. Would I still be working in a recycling centre at age 77? I'm probably not. You do hear of people working in Tesco's on the cash who are well into their 70s or 80s. But again, I'm not so ambitious. I want people to think well of me, so I still want to curate my reputation, as it were. And I'm still ambitious to make a little bit more money, because that would really help me to afford those pina coladas. But that has changed. So I think so for example, your kids, no doubt they have their ambitions, their hopes and their dreams. So this is good. This is a natural fading away of that ambition organ, if there is such a thing physically in the body.
Yes. I think there is something, isn't there? There's something that drives you, and that that I don't like to think of it as fading away. I like to think of it as changing.
Yes.
And the emphasis will change, and because I think it's still very important, because I think that's one of the things I'm interested about. What drives people to do what they do. But the reason why maybe changes, and and also the method of getting there maybe changes. Because I'm really interested in what you're saying about curating your reputation. That is good. You could write a book about that. Maybe that's what you can do. And talking about books, you're an author, aren't you, Andrew?
Oh, yes.
So tell us, that's one of the other many things that you've done. So tell us about your book, and we'll put a link to it in the show notes.
Cool. Along with a friend of mine, Janet Rawson, she and I wrote a book of short stories, 39 short stories called Angels with Bruises. Mine are a bit science fiction-y, but there's a bit of romance there. And we self-published it. That is another journey entirely, as you know from your book about networking.
Yes.
And so that's a bit of fun. It hasn't had very much exposure. It's out there on Amazon, and it's a good read, I think. There's two voices in the book. There's my voice and Janet's voice, so there's two different perspectives. I've put that book behind me in a way. It would be great to sell a few more copies. I am thinking about writing a novel, which is about climate change, actually. So, but I've stalled on that.
Oh, well.
But I hope to do some writing classes and writing courses now that we are coming out more of COVID, and I've been out a lot more. There are things that I can do to boost my writing, and I enjoy that. I suppose that's the other thing that many people in a retired age will say, well, what can I do creatively that I never had a chance to do in my working life? So I guess there are lots of people in retirement age who are doing painting by the riverside, working with charcoal, mosaics, writing, learning an instrument, learning a language, and so on.
So, well, one of the questions I ask all my guests is, and we've talked about it a lot actually. So I talked to them about their health and well-being, and Andrew was actually my second guest on this podcast, and we talked about his journey about discovering he had bowel cancer at the time, and so you've had that as part of your journey. So I'll talk about health and well-being, and I also talk about, so how do you stay focused, positive, and productive? And as you're moving into this different area, if you like, you've talked about things that you would like to do, some things that you've started and maybe have paused for a little bit, and some things I think can go into the future. And you talked about things like, so one of my things is to learn how to play the guitar and stuff like that. So how do you keep yourself focused, positive, and productive, and actually driven to actually do those things? Because it takes quite a bit of effort, doesn't it? It takes a bit of effort to downsize. It takes a bit of effort to find something to do with your days and stuff like that. And I think that's one of the things I'm scared of. So if I stop working, if I stop the business, what would I do all day? So how do you do that, Andrew?
Well, I never turn the telly on to watch daytime TV before 7 p.m. That's one rule that I have.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that.
I try and get up early, but not too early. And if I oversleep, I don't beat myself up about it. I used to, but I've stopped doing that. I thought, well, I've overslept. I'm not that busy today. That's fine. I like to do a walk every day, and I do that most days. I'm not quite on 10,000 steps a day, but I'm probably average about 8,000 steps a day. And that is very good for me because it enables me to be walking and thinking at the same time. I can multitask with that and think through what's going on, or just think through things about where I'm walking. And that's really nice. I belong to a gym, so I don't go all that often, but when I do go, I know I feel good. But then the next day I think, oh, I need a lie-in. That gym was horrible. and then I suppose, once I've moved house, my plan is to take more holidays and more time away, especially in Europe, not too far, but I think I will enjoy that. Different food, sitting on a terrace somewhere, watching the people go past with a cup of coffee or a glass of wine. And that I know will be very good for my mental health and keeping me active. Plus, of course, maybe working on my novel or writing, or just seeing friends and doing lunch. I'll do lunch.
Yeah, lots of lunch. Yeah. Andrew Does Lunch, another great title for a book, I think, would be, where you've had lunch all over the world would be great. So thank you for that, Andrew. So how do people get in touch with you, to offer you that job in the recycling plan, or to offer you some voiceover work, because I've heard your dulcet tones on this podcast? How could people get in touch with you?
Well, I don't have a website at the moment. I may get that going again. They could get in touch with me through you. I've got Instagram. My book is on Instagram, Angels with Bruises. I admit I don't keep my Instagram post up, but it's there, and there is a little bit of content there, which is quite fun. Otherwise, they can Google me, I guess. I'm on the Spotlight, which is the actors list, and you can get in touch with me through that, or through you, or just Google my name and you will find it, Andrew Baguley.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So is there one thing that you could share with the audience about being positive in your old age, that you, or in your older age? I don't know. And also there's something about it, talking about what terms do you use about aging, and how do you feel about those, or that has helped you and could help other people?
I think just acceptance, just accepting that age comes. Don't fight against it. Do your best to stay happy, and time will pass. It will be what it will be, and the universe will unfold as it should.
Yeah, and you'll find, and yeah, I think I would add to that whatever happens, something will always happen. Even if you stay still all day, something will happen, and it will find you, I think, and you'll find changes. A way forward. Yeah,
we don't live in status, so everything will change one way or another. And I suppose I embrace being older. I enjoy it now. I've had my fears about getting older, but I think those have passed now.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoy just being a more mature man and getting on with my life as it is now, and accepting where I am. And if it becomes to a stage where I'm not happy, to put in place policies and procedures internally to think, well, how can I make myself happy, or how can I fix this, or what can I do? So just to keep monitoring that.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Andrew. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you like this. And that's it for the Dawn Jarvis Show. I hope you liked it. If you did, like, share, subscribe. Let us know what you think in the comments, and take care. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.